Hello everyone, welcome to the second part of this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed the first part. So the first part was mostly the introductory aspect of PHP, and here we are. We're going to discuss other PHP topics, and in the first part we talked about creating a basic statement with PHP. So we're able to create a basic hello world statement with PHP, and we're able to see how to add, how to embed PHP inside of HTML and vice versa. So it's very easy. And I think lastly, from that part, we were able to download a template online and integrate our PHP, which is what you always want to do. So welcome to this second part. So this second part, I'll take you through topics like comments, data types, variables, concatenation, conditional statements, and let's see how far we can go with this. Okay, so welcome to this part once again. So let's get started. All right, this is where we left off. So I'll debunk this particular file. Let's just try to create another folder here. Let's go here, learn, and we have a new folder. Let me just call practice 2. Yep, yeah. So practice 2, that's a folder name. Okay, so I don't know why I'm mixing things up. Yeah, but let me open this practice 2 so that we just have it like open folder. We go inside of learn and we have practice 2. So we separated from what we did in the first part. Yeah, okay. So if we are to go through the URL, we will be able to see localhost. Remember, we have to start our server in time. So we will see localhost was I learn, then practice 2, yeah. So whatever we do here, it will be on this URL. Okay, so remember to start your Apache and probably MySQL. Soon we'll start working with MySQL. It's a database management system. So after that, you can close this. So first things first, we create a file, and let's briefly talk about something. Let's briefly talk about comments. Okay, so we have comments.php. Okay, so different programming languages have different kinds of comments. Okay, for example, Python has a comment that looks like this. Okay, so once you do that on a line, what it does is that it tells the computer not to run that line of program. Okay, so different programs have different kinds of comments. Most comments are repeated across some programs, but like this one is repeated. If you are using hash, it's a one single line comment and it's repeated across, think PHP, Python, and the rest. But then we also have a comment like this. Okay, so the thing is, comments is generally ignored by the computer program. It's not executed as part of the program. So let's see how we can do that. So if we have a PHP tag here and then we close it, okay, say we try to do something like echo this will display. Okay, so let's see if that will actually display. Okay, so we have comments.php and this will display. It works properly. All right, so let's have another line and just add here not display. Okay, you will see that both lines should display. Let me just add a break tag here so that it will go on 2 lines. Sorry about that. So it will go on the next line. Alright, so this will display, this will not display. So the one that will not display, we actually need a comment for it. Okay, so what you do is on just before the beginning of the line, before any statement, you have your 2 slashes like that, and it will comment that second line. So the second line is not displayed. So wow, why? Somebody might just ask, why do we need to do this? Isn't our goal to develop, write programs and they display? Yes, that's our goal actually. But there are scenarios where you don't need some lines to display. Okay, you don't need some text to display, so you actually put them off. So those scenarios could arise like you want to let other users, other programmers to understand your code. Okay, so say I'm writing something and now do echo, this is PHP. Then maybe somebody did not understand what I'm trying to perform here. So you write a comment above that to say this statement will print this statement will print this is PHP. Okay, so if you write that, any other programmer, any other team member is working alongside yourself will know that, oh wow, okay, so this section of the code is actually a print statement and it will show this. Okay, so the first way you can use comment is to document it and let others understand what the next part of code is going to be used for. The other way of using comment is there are times, sorry about that, there are times you write programs like a decade ago. I know some programs I wrote 10 years ago and then happen to see those codes. So your brain may be volatile. Sometimes you may forget, what was I actually trying to achieve? Mark you, when you're writing serious programs, you may get programs that have runs over 1,000 lines, 1,000 pages. So putting them up together, just to come together, you might have written something like a note down, a jotting that would help you remember. So coming back to that program, comment will help you to quickly remember that part of the code, what you were trying to achieve with that code. Okay, so it helps to remind you of what you did. Okay, so once you come back to your code, you can always, and it helps to remind another programmer. Say you worked in a company, you are no longer working there, there is a new programmer or your teammate, to understand what you are trying to achieve. And it helps a lot to improve what you are doing. Okay, so another way comments can be really useful would be to leave out some part of the code. Say we wrote this code and we wrote let me just print this as echo and print this, and maybe I mistakenly forget to add a semicolon here, right? So another thing, I forget to add an ending this and a semicolon. Okay, so let's just leave that out. So I think this code will run into problems on line 7. So let's try to run this. So we are having an error on line 7 because of what happened on line 6. So comment would help us to, like, let's see how to fix this code. So what I'll do is I comment line 1 and see, could it be line 1 that is causing a problem with my code? And I run again. No, it's not line 1, because even when line 1 is out, the code still has problems. So I uncomment line 1 and I comment line 2. Could it be line 2? I'm asking myself. and I run the code again, it's not still working. So line 2 is not the problem. So I get to line 6 perhaps, and I comment out line 6. So once I do that, you see that our code works. Okay, and then you'll be okay, so the problem is this line. You now take a closer look at this line and you notice that you did not end the you did not end this mark, this quotation mark, and then you did not terminate the statement. So once you do those two things, you uncomment that, and then you see that everything works properly. This is the third line and this is the last line. Okay, so comment is a way of helping you to debug in debugging a set of code. You understand? It can grow bigger and then it will become so cumbersome that it's not easy to debug. So debugging in programming is just like saying, how do you call it, troubleshooting in networking and hardware and all those things. So you see the trouble, you shoot the trouble, you solve the problem. Okay, so debugging helps also for programmers. So you use comment for that. So all right, so that's all for comments I can discuss. So one last thing I think I felt, so what if you want to comment each line? Yeah, if you had 100 lines and we want to do this, it's not really a good practice. So there is a way you can comment multiple lines in in programming languages. So you can comment like this and it comments all of them at once. If you try to run, nothing goes out, nothing will display. Let's check that again. So let me save this. Oh, okay, so it's gone. I think it was something with my catch. All right, so and then if I didn't comment this last line, if I kept it here, then it means the last line will still print. So the last line prints. So that's all there is to comments. I hope you really understand this part. All right, so let's take ourselves now to what we call data types. Data types. Data types. .php. So what is a data type? A quote I heard some time ago said, our life is frittered away by too much details, by detail. Simplify, simplify. So I want to simplify your understanding of data types. So data types just means types of data. Just means types of data. So there are different types of data you may have. Okay, data of course is raw information, so there are different types of data. Some data like the one we just saw, you can have a data like welcome to programming. Yeah, okay, so you ask yourself, what kind of data is this? This is a text. Okay, so in programming it is called string. So this is a string data. Okay, so we call this one string, no need for that bracket. All right, so we have another kind of data. Maybe somebody's age is 35. Okay, someone's age is 35, or maybe the amount of money someone has is 50,000, something like this. So this kind of data is not this type of data. So this one you may call it number, okay, in the original sense, but in programming you can call it integer. Okay, integer or int. Okay, int for short. Okay, so we have different kinds of data types. So the other kind of data type we'll talk about is something like you have 23.56. Okay, value, the value is 23.56. So this is called decimal point. Please, sorry about that, excuse me. It's yeah, please just manage me the way I am today. So we have decimal points, then this is float. Okay, in programming is called float. Okay, so the other ones we have, maybe someone is trying to find out something, is it true or false? Okay, so we may be just asking male, are you a male? So your answer should be yes or no. You can't be yes and no, or maybe you can't be 5,000. This is not numerical, this is not text. So we expect a true or false answer, just like, is it raining outside? So your expectation is yes, it's raining, or no, it's not raining. So if we are performing this kind of checks, then this in programming would be called Boolean. Okay, so we have other ones, arrays and the rest of them in PHP. So these are data types, and once you understand these data types, you'll be able to write very effective codes, because we are going to use these data types as soon as possible. All right, so let me just comment that, and then we get over to the next thing. So now that you have a basic understanding of data types, I guess it's time to start discussing what we call variables. I particularly love this topic, variable, for any programming language, because uh, that's a root of everything. All right, so welcome to variables. Now I'll use a mathematical introduction, a physical introduction, before I actually pour out what you understand as variables in programming. Okay, so in mathematics, you've probably used a calculator before, and then you you were working on a particular computation, and then there is this value that you repeatedly need. You need it all the time, like you need it maybe to add, to subtract, or to do a particular thing. Let's say we we are contributing a particular sum of money, let's say 1,000. Okay, and then you need this particular amount, 1,000, all the time, to subtract or to add or to divide or any other computation. So you can easily add that 1,000 to what we call memory. Okay, m plus. Okay, so that if you need to do 1,000 plus 100, so you don't need to type it again, just do m plus, then plus 100, and it will give you 1,100. If you need to do m plus minus 5, you get your, okay, so something like that. So you save it in memory. Now, in the other approach that I said, I'll discuss the physical part. What if somebody runs to your house and, hey, and calls you John Doe? How are you? You say fine. He says, take this number, you need it very soon. Take this number. So you say, what kind of number? And then he drops the number. He says, the number is 10. The number is 10. You're asking yourself, what will I use the number for? And the person runs away. Okay, and then another person comes with gifts, with money, with presents, and then just appears to you and say, okay, if you can add a certain number to 5 and give me a result that I think in my mind, then I'll give you maybe $500, maybe one big sum like that, and you really need this money. Okay, what, something takes your mind back. Somebody just told me about 10, and here this guy is saying if I can add a certain number to 5, let me just add that 5, that 10 to 5. Okay, and then you do 10 plus 5 is 15, and then you announce to the person the number you are thinking about is 15, and then you get your gift. So what have you done? The first person actually dropped a temporary value for you, okay, and you saved it in a container, expecting to make or to do computations with this value. Okay, so that's what a variable is. So we define a variable in computer like a container, a logical container for holding data, such that it can be retrieved and manipulated later in the program. So a lot of times we use variables. I've not seen a programmer who hasn't uh, had so much use of variables. Okay, so that's the core of everything. So you'll understand what I mean. So with PHP, what you do, how do you declare variables? Remember, you start PHP with those tags. So how do you declare variables with PHP? You um so let's not echo anything for now. Okay, so to declare variables, let me just comment this, declare variables, declare a variable. Okay, let me just use one and then use the variable. Okay, so two things. So to declare a variable, what you need to do is we have this dollar sign that you can use to declare a variable in PHP. Different syntaxes for different languages, but in PHP this is quite alright. So let's say I declare a variable called name, okay, and so this is how to declare a variable. The name of the variable, the dollar sign, the name of the variable is assigned the value of. Mark you, this is not equal to. We'll talk about operators later, but just know that this sign is not equal to. It's called assignment operator. So name is assigned the value of, let's say, John Doe. Okay, so now this John Doe, remember when we talked about data types, we said John Doe is like welcome to programming. That's a text, a string. So every string you use will have to use quotes around them. Okay, if it's a number, there is no quotes. Okay, you don't need quotes around them. So going back here, we need quotes around that. Okay, so if we remove quotes, there will be an issue if we try to run that file. Variables, so there is an issue, so we maintain our quotes, okay, around. So nothing prints because we've not asked anything to print. So you've declared the variable. Now that you've declared the variable, you've held it in a container temporarily. So what you need to do now is to print that variable. And the way we do it with PHP, normally you would have this if you are printing a statement like Sammy, okay? But for printing a variable, you don't need quotes, so you just need the variable name. The best way to do it is just try to copy this and paste. Otherwise, if you make a mistake with the naming, like you are doing this, you make a mistake with the typing again, it usually has an issue. So we don't want that. So we copy this verbatim and we paste, okay, so that we have the exact variable that we declared. So we will see John Doe is printed for us. Okay, so John Doe is printed, and that's a variable printed for us. Okay, so let's say we have another variable age. Okay, I missed that. So variable age is 23. So and I'm now saying echo, instead of echoing John Doe, I'm now echoing age. Okay, so it will give me 23. Okay, so this is as easy as possible. You declare variables and you call them. Okay, so let's play with other forms of variable. Let me say I have variables. Two int variables can perform computations, as well as float variables. Like if we have 34 there and 23, this should be 7 and 5, 57. So let's change this to num2, num1, 57, right? Yep. So num1 plus num2, so it gives us 57 expectedly. So you are able to make some computations directly from the variables if they are all of the same type, integer or float. All right, so let's have let's just say minus, this was 70 what, 77, 57, so let's just say minus 50, and we should have 7 left. So we have num3, okay, so we should have that 7 left. Okay, so that's how to play about this. All right, let me see. Okay, we also have floats. We can work with that. So let's say 10.5 and 5.9. Okay, let's just put that, and then we are adding them up. It should give us 16.4 expectedly. All right, so these are float data types. Okay, so but they are the same once you try to declare them as variables. Okay, so that is how to work with very simple data types and variables. All right, So I will discuss something now briefly, because it's really important. It's really important. All right, so notice, uh, let's go ahead with our variables, go to another topic, and we call this topic concatenation. Concatenation.php. But I will pause. I will not work on it yet. Let me just do one last thing here. So what if we had a variable like name we previously had, and then we say Ada Lovelace. I like using her name. She was the first female programmer. It's not easy to be the first and a female. Yeah. So let's just say Ada Lovelace, and then we say amount, or goods. Let's just put goods there, and then, or let's just use the word items. Okay, and then we say she had 500. Okay, so if we are to print that, we'll just say name Ada Lovelace has, you see what is happening, has 500. So I'm copying that item. So this is what we are trying to achieve. Ada Lovelace has 500 items. So this will be wrong. Everything about that program is wrong from on line 7. Okay, so we need a way of adding strings. We need a way of adding strings to variables, adding strings to integers. Okay, so that way of doing it is called concatenation. But just before we discuss concatenation, joining strings together with variables or with integers or other data types, just before we discuss it elaborately here, there is a way you can simply use PHP with this syntax of, notice that we have changed from single quotes to double quotes. We can use those double quotes here, and then it will print everything lovely for us. Ada Lovelace has 500 items. Okay, so just by changing this to double quotes, we have solved that problem. Okay, double quotes here don't matter, but while echoing, PHP offers this very beautiful syntax that you're able to use double quotes to perform some concatenation easily. Okay, but there is just a downfall. Okay, and we'll discuss that in our next part, which is concatenation. Sorry, so I get back to concatenation. To make it easier, I copy this and I try to paste to continue this. So what if you, because of the design of your code, you really needed to use this? Or let's not start there. What if we were to say Jesus is, okay, name, then we now say maybe title, and then we now say Lord. So we want a way of printing Jesus is Lord, then we now write something like duration, and this will be forever. So we want to add these three statements. Now the owner, the user of the system, or let's say the user that gave the specification, says he wants it to be printed like this. It is a must that you must print the result like this: Jesus is Lord forever, with this forever. Okay, and maybe something, the theme of this convention is Jesus is Lord, and then he specifies that this should be in double quotes. So in such a way, you will have an issue bringing in these double quotes here where you already have double quotes. Okay, so that is a big issue, and then we'll see how to resolve that with concatenation. You bring in double quotes inside already defined double quotes that are enclosing the strings. All right, so let's see how we can try to achieve this. So the theme of the convention is, I've copied this and I paste it just in front, is what? Jesus is Lord. So I copy this. Okay, copy this, and then of course that's the name it will show. Jesus is title, then forever is what? Duration. So this should print without the quotes for us. Okay, so we see this. Where are we? Concatenation. Yeah, so we type this concatenation. Okay, let me see. I think we've had a problem somewhere. The theme of the convention is Jesus. The theme of the convention is name, is title. Okay, let me try to remove this first. We are having issue with line 5. Oh wow, okay, let me just do, so I forgot to terminate my sentence, my variable there. So it works. The theme of this year's convention is Jesus is Lord forever, but the owner specified that we should have double quotes here. So what do you do with that? If you try to add double quotes here and add double quotes here, we should print nicely, but we'll have an error. Okay, so the way the computer understands it is, you opened a double quote here, okay, and then the program expects that the next time you touch, the next time it sees this double quote, it expects a termination, like this statement should end here without any issues now. Okay, but then the program sees this and then you are not terminating the sentence, the statement, you go ahead to add more things and have another this and have this, so the program gets confused. So that is it. So a way to sort this out would have been to change this to single quotes, but our dear pastor insists that it should be double quotes. Okay, so how do you do that with concatenation? So we put it back to double quotes with concatenation. So the way we should do it is, we use what we call escape character. Okay, we use what we call escape character here. Okay, so we escape that value. Let me change this to US quickly. So we escape this value, okay, and escape this value. Okay, so you escape before the double quotes, you escape before the double quotes, okay, and then that should print very well. So we have escape character, we use very well there. Okay, so now talking about the real concatenation that I wanted to talk about. Now let's get this line twice. So let's say we have copied that, and then we say we have this. Okay, so how do you concatenate with single quotes? Okay, single quotes that have single quotes. Let's just leave that. Let's just leave the termination stuff. So how do you concatenate this? Okay, so apart from using this to make concatenation to be easy, apart from using double quotes, there is a way you can use this, and you use a single quote and it will still do the job for us. So I close with single quotes. So now there is a problem, of course. So this is what you do. You concatenate by having a single quote. Where the single quote stops, you add a dot. Okay, after every string, just before you get to the variable, you add a dot. So once you get out of the variable, you go out with a dot first, then a string opens, and then you get here. This is the end of another string, which is, and then you have another dot because you are going inside of that. Okay, then you have this and have this, and separate these two with a space. So once you do that, you've properly concatenated everything there. I think we are having one last error there. Let me check that. Okay, so we didn't need this last one. We didn't need that again. So the theme of the convention is Jesus is Lord. Okay, I think I'm using a rather difficult example. So let's comment all this out, and then let me use a very simple example. Let me use that name example where I said name, if name for first name, and we say is assigned the value of John. Okay, and then we have his name, and then we say do. Okay, and then we now have something like age. Okay, and then we say 18. All right, so now we are able to write a statement that would say my name is. Okay, so we have echo. We should have something like my name is. So we are leaving a string. So what you need, space there, then dot, because you are going into a variable. So let's just use to make it more interactive, my first name is. So you add this, and then you go out of the first name again, and then you enter string, and my surname is, and you leave the string again, enter a variable with dot, and then you have this s name. Okay, and then that's all right. So the last thing to do is, and maybe you can have a comma here, and I am, then you leave the string to bring in the age. So you have age, the age, okay, years old. You can actually break those lines. So you can have a dot there, that's a full stop, and that ends it. So you've properly concatenated these variables within the strings without any issues, effortlessly. So this is how it shows my name is John, and my first name is John, and my surname is Doe, and I am 18 years old. So that is how you play with concatenation. Then we talked a bit about your escape characters. These two topics can easily be confused with each other, but then they work together. So you're able to concatenate and then escape your characters effectively. All right. So I think that's what we wanted to talk about. We'll continue with this topic, conditional statements, in our next class. Do have a nice day. Thank you very much.